Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to CRS360 for October. This is a webinar series designed to bring you topical and actionable content all year, in addition to the full agenda that we present and share with you during CRS in Nashville each year. And today we are proud to present Audio Avengers, Radio's Superpower, which is Air Talent. That name brought to you by Kevin Callahan, our moderator for today. This has been a continuing discussion for CRS, especially in recent years. If we go back to April of this year, we did a 360 where we shared results from a portion of the research project that we presented in February at CRS 2025 called A Face for Radio, looking at the role of personality at country radio and its impact on listener engagement. And then if you go back to 2024, our entire research project for CRS was dedicated to this topic as well. And if you go on the CRS website, countryradioseminar.com, you can find the archival information and all the slides and information on that. If you want to go back and look at that, it's there for you. So I hope you can see that we're passionate and we're determined about sustaining radio's superpower in this changing world with lots of entertainment choices out there. And we do have a great panel today. And as I said, in keeping with the Avenger, superhero, and superpower theme, we've assembled 4 radio crusaders for your entertainment pleasure this afternoon. And to moderate this discussion, we are proud to have Kevin Callahan, our CRS 26 Agenda Vice Chair, and he's been the visionary behind today's discussion. So Kevin, I'll turn it over to you, and thanks everybody for participating.
Great. Well, as everybody's probably read in the trades, there's article after article lately over this last several months about talent and its importance. And so, I've asked, some of the longest and most vocal talent advocates to join me today, and figured we'd start a little bit with Fred Jacobs, who does Tech Survey 25 each year, and has a couple of slides to share with us and a couple of items of discussion that will get us started.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Let's see if we can actually get these babies working here. Hopefully you can see some data. So one of my favorite slides in each year's tech survey is this Why Radio slide, where we give respondents this list of possible assets down the left-hand column, and we ask them to tell us what are the main drivers, the main reasons why you listen to radio. So this is for the entire sample, which this year was 24,500 and change. So a big sample. And interestingly, the top 2 elements that are most important to people, you never see these on a billboard, but easy to listen to in a car, and radio is free. So those are a couple of advantages that maybe we don't always think about. But then you go to number 3, and that's where the personalities kick in and are absolutely key elements, key drivers, if you will, in why people continue to listen to broadcast radio. And then as you begin to go down the hierarchy of importance here, you see a lot of the emotional underpinnings of radio. I feel a connection with radio. I like to work with the radio on. Companionship, radio keeps me company, gets me in a better mood, helps me escape the pressure of everyday life. I mean, a lot of these may not be primary importance, but they are right up there. Interestingly, look at second from the bottom. Winning prizes is one of the lowest drivers. I say that with a bit of caution, though. Playing contests may not be the main motivator why people listen, but we know contests are effective. So this is what the overall sample looks like, and I pulled the same slide for our country sample, which is about 3,600 listeners strong. And so what you see immediately at the beginning, when you go all the way to the top, is not easiest to listen to in the car, or it's free. They're right up there. But the number 1 element is the music. And this really speaks to the power and passion behind country music. It's 77% by the way. That is the highest of the 10 formats included. So no other format generates as much music passion as does country, which has been a real asset to all country programmers over the years. The music really matters. But DJs, hosts, and shows have been moving up. They're only a couple of points off the main sample percentage of 61. They're at 59%, which is very, very healthy. And that represents growth over the years. So personality has slowly but surely made a rise and has become a more prominent element in the way that people listen to stations like yours. And I wanted to just point out a couple of other points of interest, if you will. Fill a Connection with Radio is also at 59%, and that's higher than the overall sample. Companionship at 53%. That's a majority of country fans who say that is an important part of what the radio does for them. That's higher than for the overall sample. Mood elevation, also higher, and escaping the pressures of everyday life, also higher than what we see overall. So again, those emotional benefits are working with the country audience as well. And I know that's something that we're going to be talking about today with Randy and Steve, Kevin. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of a statistical lay of the land of the template that we're working with here in country.
So, Randy, you and Steve both work daily with different shows. And so when you see these couple of slides, what comes to mind?
Steve, you want to go?
Randy, I'm going to defer to you because you're,
Okay.
you're the innovator here of starting all this talent coaching.
Well, I'll tell you what occurs to me is how that talent sets your radio station apart. I mean, in many markets, there are 2 country radio stations, sometimes 3, and then you look at the fact that music is ubiquitous. It's available on your phone anywhere. And the talent is what's going to set your radio station apart. And the other thing from Fred's survey here that caught my eye was the connection and companionship.
Yeah.
I hear so many radio stations, even a morning drive, will go into a stop set, come out with a produced sweeper, play a song, a produced sweeper, another song, a produced sweeper, and no connection with the talent. And I advise our clients to be present, especially in morning drive when the time spent listening is so short in the morning. I mean, you could have a quarter hour go by and never hear your morning show if there's too much imaging in production. And hearing that familiar, trusted voice is going to make the connection to the audience. And the other thing that occurs to me too is that if you have a trusted voice, if you have a show, if you have a talent that has been outperforming the radio station for a good number of years, that trusted voice could be not only the face, but the voice of your brand as well. If you're doing any visual marketing, have that person be the spokesperson. And then think about this too, rather than a generic out of town voiceover person, have that trusted personality do a lot of your imaging, and people are going to pay more attention to that. And I think the messages are going to cut through more with a personality brand.
Yeah. What we as human beings are wired for connection. The simple, hard fact that has lived the test of time. We learned this in COVID, when we couldn't have human connection with people, how much we missed it, how important it was to have that as a driver to build relationships with the people in our lives. And I echo everything that Randy said here. To me, radio superpower is its intimacy. We'll all go back to when we were baby DJs. I'll allow everyone to conjure that decade for a brief moment. I learned then, and it still holds true today, that it's only one listener. And I know that sounds kind of trite and cliche, but it's true. How many times, and Randy, I know I'm guaranteed you hear this from the shows you work with. I hear it from the shows that I work with, that they meet a listener for the first time in years. And the listener says, I feel like I know you. And that's the power of talent and connection if the talent is connecting by doing the right content. And to me, what talent means to radio, and I don't think AI can replicate this. I'm biased here. I get it. I understand the use of technology. I'm not in denial about it. It has its place. But talent, whether they live in the market or not, their ability to tell a story about themselves and say to the audience, I'm just like you, binds them to the brand in a way that both breeds familiarity and makes the listener feel less lonely. I mean, I would love for all of us, I'd love for all of us to convince the NAB to use that as a marketing campaign for the benefit of what it is that we do, which is we're radio. We make people feel less lonely in a world where we have all of these devices and all of us are lonelier than we ever have been. And it's the friendly voice on the radio connecting with the audience, making them laugh, making them feel seen, that builds loyalty to the radio station, that brings more ears to what it is that we do every day. We only need to look, we're recording this the week after Bert left being on the air. We only need to look at all of the articles being done on Bert, and if you listen to any of his final show, that was his power, and that's the power of what it is that we do if we do it the right way.
You know, Steve, it's really interesting because I think when you actually put what you and Randy said into action, there is no more intimate media relationship than a person in their car driving to work, probably by themselves. I mean, we know these HOV lanes are empty most of the time. People are traveling solo, and that connected voice speaking out to people, relating to what they are going through today. And look, people are stressed beyond belief. I'm still doing tons of focus groups. I've got 2 to moderate tonight. People will tell you, no matter what side of the political ledger they line up on, they are stressed out. They are definitely feeling that. And a personality in the right place at the right time. And again, you can see the emotional underpinnings here on a chart like this. The potential to connect with an audience, especially now, I think has never been greater.
Yeah. Old, young, country fan or not, excuse me, Randy, old or young, country fan or not, everyone endures loneliness. Let's fix that with our talent.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Randy.
It was interesting. There was a study that came out recently on all of the TV news anchors and covered all of the networks. I think like 80 people were surveyed there, along with the network that they are on. And for example, David Muir, he scored like 77% in trust with the audience, where ABC was like 33.
Yeah.
And so people do not have trust in entities, even networks or radio stations, but they do have trust in personalities that they're familiar with and that they make that emotional connection with.
Yeah.
Great. See, I've heard words like trust and intimacy, and I'm sure somewhere in the conversation we're going to hear a word like authenticity.
Yeah.
And so, we are talking about superpowers today, and so I guess I want to go around the room again, and we can start with Randy again, and just what do you think superpowers are today for air talent? What makes them?
The superpowers today for air talent, there are 2 main ones. One would be authenticity, being real, sounding real on the air. And that is sharing your point of view, sharing your life experiences, sharing your personal stories. And then, other superpowers that would come under that being real umbrella, it's self-deprecation. Self-deprecation is a great form of humor that not only humanizes you as a talent, but it also gives you likability. And the other thing that, the other component that would come under being authentic and being real is being vulnerable. And when you as a talent can be brave enough, confident enough to be vulnerable, to admit mistakes, to reveal regrets and that sort of thing, that is so sticky and so memorable with the audience. And the other one The other major superpower, humor and fun. I mean, that's an obvious one, but I will tell you that if you're funny and you can bring humor to a show, that is a great asset that will also, it'll transcend a lot of flaws too. Being funny is it's just one of those skills that rare people have and that people are looking for, particularly in a morning show. And the other one is having fun. Not everybody can be funny, but you can be fun. And that, and back to what Steve was saying a second ago, there's a feeling there that is going to connect with the audience when you can have fun. So those are the two main ones. And the other superpowers I would say today is being able to generate creative and innovative content that is different, that it stands out. And one of the things that I recommend to our clients too is journaling, because just the act of journaling every day is one of those things that does help you to be more creative. And that is journaling from pen to paper is better than doing it on a keyboard, because pen to paper connects to the right side of your brain, the creative side. And it also, if you're going to blog, which is also one of the skills that I think that is needed as an air personality today, it helps you develop your writing skills as well. And the other one too is just being a multi-platform performer, being a media personality, being able to utilize video, your social media skills, and all of those things. One of the clients that I worked with, the Tino Cucino show, he is phenomenal at doing short form videos on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those. So I would say that those four things right there are the superpowers.
Great. Steve?
Randy and I are in alignment. I want to talk about the journaling, which I think is just so brilliant, and the shows that I work with do it as well. And there's a lot of benefit to that. I tell shows what you are your own worst critic. You will say, I have a boring life. We all think we have boring lives, but your boring life could be fascinating to me. You could go out and shop for a washer and dryer on a Saturday at Lowe's, or sit around all day Sunday in your boxer shorts and watch golf on television and say, I'm not going to talk about that on the air because nothing happened. But with the right question in the creation of that content, all I'd need to do on a gathering is ask what you think of doing laundry. Do you hate it? Is it your least favorite chore? Or what does your spouse think of you sitting around all day on Sunday in your underwear watching golf? And drama unfolds and a story appears. And then all of a sudden, we've got a break that positions you as just like the audience. I think it's very powerful. I worked for a while with the morning show, A.D. Roundtree at KSHE in St. Louis. Never before had he journaled. TJ from the TJ shows the same way. When I worked with TJ in Boston, TJ calls me about every 3 months, tells me how valuable the journaling has been to him to find content to connect him to the audience. AD, I had him doing weekend journals because that was a part of our content creation on our weekly call. He started a Substack with them. Just started to post his journals every week on Substack. Another place to be seen by the audience. I want to just talk for a moment, if I can, because I think Randy gave an absolutely stellar list of superpowers of talent. I think familiarity is really important. We gravitate to what's familiar to us, especially when we wake up in the morning. We're routine oriented. We do the same stuff in the same order. We take the same route to work every day. So do the listeners. Why is that? Because it's familiar. And if you are familiar to the audience, you will become part of that routine. That's part of that regimen. So familiarity is really important because people will choose what is familiar to them, and it might not be as good as the new product across the street that is less familiar. And just one other thing I want to say is I talk a lot with my shows about trust. Great brands have human faces now, right? Elon Musk is Tesla. Good or bad, whatever you think of him. He is the face of that brand, as is Tim Cook with Apple and Jeff Bezos is with Amazon. And the list goes on and on. Great brands have human faces in front of them. And they suffer the downside and reap the rewards as well of how that person is perceived. But how does a talent build trust? Well, to me, trust in life is nothing more than a product of vulnerability plus time. If I'm vulnerable with you in little incremental pieces over the run of our relationship, trust will be built. I'll get to know you better. Fred, you're a great example of that, of how vulnerable you were a couple of months back with your medical admission.
Right.
And there are people in the industry who knew that about you. I mean, I knew that about you. You were trusting of me because of our long friendship. Yet the outpouring of affection for you, for the people that didn't know it, built that trust. And that breeds loyalty and compassion and all the things that Randy said, that radio cannot succeed without all of it.
I totally agree with that. And to follow up on what Steve said, I touched on storytelling and talking about your personal stories and life experiences, but storytelling, that is one of the greatest skills that you can have. If you think about it, everything that we watch when we're streaming on Hulu or Netflix and everything, it's about the story. And it's the same thing with radio shows too. Being able to tell a captivating story, not only your personal stories, but also the trending stories, the good news stories, and that sort of thing too. Not reading the stories, but telling the story.
Yeah. You know what Steve Jobs once said, you know who the most powerful person in the world is? Say it, Randy. I know you know the answer.
The storyteller.
Storyteller. If I can tell a great story, I own you. I'll own you and I can move you. Look at Howard Stern. Howard can move so many of us to wherever he wants to move us to because he knows how to tell a great story.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We do a lot of work in public radio, and obviously they are going through a tremendously difficult time at this point with their defunding situation. And they are struggling because many of the people who work in public radio, God bless them, are not great storytellers. They're great journalists, and they might even be good music hosts, but maybe not as strong on the storytelling front. And yet right now, they've got a very compelling story to tell if they could figure out exactly how to do that. And so that becomes, I think, one of those missing links that commercial radio in particular is just so much more skilled in. There are really good storytellers out there who are very compelling. And again, that's what keeps us coming back for more with each successive morning.
So I've heard a lot of talent coaches or people who are coaching talent program director roles or whatever talk about making the audience feel something. And that sounds a lot like what we're talking about. Steve, I mean, do you agree? I mean, do you feel if we make them feel something? I mean, you talked about Fred's vulnerability. We talked a little bit about some storytelling. We talked a little bit about, NPR's position. It seems like if we can find a way to make people feel something, and often that's making them feel good, but I mean, at times, indeed, perhaps it's making them, calling them to action for something else that we need.
Yeah. Any moment any of us can recall from last week to 50 years ago, we can because there was an emotion attached to it. Do you remember, think for a moment, all four of us, do you remember the first time the ratings came off the printer and you were number one, adults 25-54? Do you remember losing a pet or a loved one? I mean, if an emotion is attached to it, it makes it memorable, and it's on us to take stands. Randy mentioned that earlier. Just be honest with the audience. That's authenticity is nothing more than being honest, and they know if you're bullshitting them. Their BS meter like flashes on the third word if they think you're making it up. Just be honest with them. Character development is honesty and vulnerability. That's it. Be honest with the audience, share your life. Trust will be built if you do it over the run of time. You're not going to reveal everything all at once. But if you can't make anyone else in your life feel something, in life or on the radio, why would they want to be around you? They wouldn't. No one would want to be around me.
No, I agree. That's a very good point. You know, a good exercise to do with your shows is to listen to segments of content and like, okay, we're going to rate this segment on a 1 to 5 scale. Of 1, we felt no emotion, and 5, we really felt, you know, we felt that emotion. It could be heartfelt, it could be humor that we felt, it could be drama, there could be conflict. All of those are going to emit emotion.
Yeah, I ask shows when we're planning something, I say to them, how do you want people to feel when they take delivery of the product? And the product is your break. Sorry, I have to have an Apple analogy. Randy has his AirPods in. I saw the AirPods. I have to have an Apple analogy. I'm an Apple person. I'm an Apple person. Apple knows how they want me to feel, regardless of how I interact with them, whether I'm in the store, the box shows up at the house. I call tech support at Apple. Within 60 seconds, you're talking to who? A human being, not a bot. Apple knows how they want me to feel whenever I interact with them as a brand. That's why I am a devotee of the brand and I sing their praises. Try getting Microsoft on the phone. Best of luck. So I say to shows, how do you want people to feel when they take delivery of the product? The product's your break. And if they know how they want the audience to feel, because we control how the audience feels. Great brands know how to make the audience feel something. How do you want them to feel at the end of that? And then let's craft our content so they do that.
Great point.
Fred, you're not just a survey guy. You've worked with big brands, big shows. You know, reflect on something that, you know, that is maybe perhaps one of the biggest strengths that sticks in your mind.
Well, you know, we're kind of circling the emotional intelligence airport here, because that's really what this is all about. Being a human being, connecting with other people, making them feel a certain way. And I don't think that has ever been more important. And really what has helped me, and maybe this is something that more stations could do, is doing listener advisory board groups where you actually bring in your audience. We don't see them as average persons or cume people. We actually get to see and hear them. And Steve said something a few minutes ago that is so true. Oftentimes in a focus group, you'll get somebody remembering something that happened on the radio or something they listened to back in 1997, and it's like it happened yesterday. It is a clear line level video of a memory that they have of listening to your show and feeling a certain way. And that is so powerful when you actually hear the audience conjure up those moments. So to me, it really is a kind of reset tool to remember what it is you're supposed to do. You know, you are supposed to make people feel better and give them a laugh and connect with them and make them feel like they're part of a community. And a community isn't a metro, you know, welcome to South Bend. A community is an entity where people actually feel a part of something, where there are like-minded people who are in that group. And that is something that talent can really hook into. I'm shocked at this point that we still in this industry are debating the importance of personality at this point. It's ridiculous. And
that's a whole other 360, Fred. That's a whole other one.
I know, and I'm not going to go into that dumpster fire, but it's a conversation I have all the time with clients and organizations and everything else, and it just seems just so off key.
Yeah, it does. Just a story from my personal life of when I first knew that I wanted to be in radio. I actually remember most of this break, and it was 1980 something. And you know, and here living back home in Albany, but I was, you know, growing up in the small town that I grew up in and listening to the rock radio show that was here at the time. And I remember the day that they were suspended, and it was because of something they said And I remember them being suspended, and I remember roughly what they said. And so I'm not real sure if it was a bit or real. It was likely a bit because they were back on the air the next week. But that was the moment in time when I knew that, radio sounded like a good time to me. And so, that was a morning show that did that for me and made me feel something. So that's great. So we talked about superpowers, and to keep with the theme here, we're going to talk a little bit about kryptonite to air talent now. Fred, we'll start with you. What are some perils, pitfalls, things that we should stay away from, or is it mostly about the coaches and what support do we give them?
Well, I would list it this way, Kevin, and this is sort of the opposite of what Randy and Steve were talking about a few moments ago. But the failure to entertain, I think, is egregious at this point. People's time is valuable. They have so many different choices for what they can listen to, whether it's Spotify or a podcast or a YouTube channel, or I mean, the list obviously is pretty infinite at this point. So when they invest their time in you and your show, that need for you to be able to deliver, I think, is critical. And I think so many shows fall into that kind of prep sheetitis zone where it's just the same shtick across several different radio stations in town. And I think not being able to figure out what my treatment is going to be, how are we going to talk about this top of mind event in a way that is compelling and memorable, I think is a piece of kryptonite that shows need to be cognizant of. And the last one, I think, is, coaching 101, but it's bits or segments that just don't really have a hook. There's just nothing about them that we can really grapple onto. And, we talk all the time about making sure that your break has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yet, how many breaks do we hear personality shows give where there is a beginning, there may be a middle, but there is certainly no end? And I think knowing where you're going, I mean, yes, there's got to be that element of spontaneity, but knowing where you're going and where you're going to end up, and frankly, what the punchline is going to be, whether it's funny or not, doesn't have to be funny, but it certainly has to have a conclusion that people can connect with. So those are the kryptonites that I look out. I look out for: green, white, and red for you Superman fans.
Great.
Well, you bring up a couple of really good points there, Fred, as far as having beginning, middle, and an end. And you're right. There are so many shows that, for example, will have an interactive topic going with the audience, and people are chiming in on how they feel, maybe about some relationship issue or whatever, and then it just ends, rather than saying, well, the consensus is that we think that this person was wrong in what they did or whatever, and not ending and not completing and not concluding a topic or a segment. And the same thing is that even in 2025, I still hear shows start with the traditional preamble of name of the radio station, the show, a slogan, the weather, the time, and chit chat, and like easing into content. And think about the way that that we use media online. We're scrolling online. Why do we stop and click on a link? We stop because a headline gets our attention. So rather than starting with a headline that is going to grab the attention of the audience, you can come back and include those service elements after that. But that beginning and the end is so important.
Yeah. I think some of the things that have been mentioned here by Fred and Randy are important. They are the structural things to a break. For me, the kryptonite is a lack of innovation. And this is not doing wacky radio bits. We know that does not work any longer. Maybe it did back, in the 80s, Kevin, or in the 70s, or maybe even a little bit in the 90s. What I find to be one of the biggest pieces of kryptonite is on our talent's part, is a lack of curiosity and imagination. And, I listen to radio and I hear a lot of, hey, let's talk about it. And I don't think that's enough to stand out. Or here's a phone topic or an occasional game or the same standard benchmarks that the audience has heard a million times over because maybe they've moved and some other show did it. I'm going to give you two examples. You know, Fred, you referenced you used the T word, treatment. That's Coleman's 3 T's of content, topic, treatment, tone, if I might. I think that's what you were referencing. I talk about that, right? The topics are the topics, but it's what you do with them that make them your own. I'm going to throw some props to the morning show here in Raleigh that I work with, Kyle, Brian, and Sarah at WRAL-FM. Taylor Swift announces she's engaged to Travis Kelce. These guys are prep fiends. The day after, when everyone's talking about it, many shows are just going to have conversation, and that's okay. It's a relevant pop culture item. Nothing wrong with that. Some people will create a phone topic or turn it into a game. Curiosity and imagination. The show here in Raleigh did the due diligence and found Travis Kelce's high school football coach, who still is friends with them and golfs with them. And they got it from a different camera angle. Their break had the coach in, and because they were curious and they were imaginative, and they created a break around a very familiar topic that they then owned. This morning, as we record this, Hurricane Melissa is battering, Jamaica. And they were like, I wonder who is the guy that goes into the hurricane and takes the picture that all of us see on the news. They found him and had him on this morning because they were curious. To me, I have a list, like not adding to the culture of the room and not helping sales and not having a great work ethic. And I think those are all pro forma that any of us can identify. But for me, if we want to capture radio's relevance again, we're gonna get reconnected back to our curiosity and imagination and let that fuel what we do with the topics of the day. So the experience for the listener, whether the break's 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they can't leave because they can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Steve, you hit it right there too. The essence of creativity and innovation, imagination and curiosity.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting about it, and I think back to some of the brainstorming sessions that I got to be a part of with Jerry Tabio, who probably is the industry's top brainstorming guy. And Jerry always said that, when you're brainstorming a topic or an idea, just taking the first thing that kind of comes to mind. Hey, what are we going to do about this Taylor Swift story? I know, let's do this. The first idea is usually not the best idea. If you actually work it for a while and you throw a few more things on the wall, all of a sudden it might be idea number 7. Or if we can combine idea 2 with idea 6, we've got something really unique. And I think the treatment thing oftentimes comes down to trying harder. I know that sounds so fundamental, but digging deeper with your team or whoever ideates your show and how you put it together, but just not taking the first idea that comes up and working harder to come up with something like your Raleigh team is doing on those bits.
How do they find that though, right? How do they find it? Is that they jump down the rabbit hole. They're reading article after article. They're watching YouTube videos. They are feeding their curiosity. And all of a sudden they run into the guy who takes the picture in the hurricane. And they think, God, I'm curious, like, what's that like to do it? That would be an interesting take. So in one of the breaks where we know we're going to talk about it because it's a topic of high familiarity, let's invite this gentleman on our show to tell us. So you have to feed that. It's really in part brainstorming, but it's also in part you doing your due diligence of research.
Yep.
One other piece of kryptonite that I would mention too, and I know this has been talked about a lot, but with all the cutbacks, the budget cuts and cutting people and everything, management does need to create conditions for talent to succeed. And a lot of times we have situations where there's no feedback. The talent is overworked doing 4 different jobs, and that's a real kryptonite issue in radio today. It totally is.
We see that in the that study that we do for Don Anthony and Morning Show Boot Camp. Was that where you were going, Kevin? I mean,
I was going to talk a little bit about worry in talent at the moment, and keep it more about the talent than why they're worrying necessarily. But
yes.
I find a lot of it lately.
There's no question about that. I think that's kind of part of the package, unfortunately. But Randy's right. I mean, there's a lot of shows that just don't have anybody working with them, which is obviously a deficit. I mean, imagine having a coach like one of these two guys actually listening to your show and thinking it through, and helping you kind of put the show through the mind of a listener. I mean, that is so critically important. And then, yeah, wearing too many hats. I mean, that is epidemic at this point. The average air personality wears 3 hats.
Yeah.
So you know how averages work. That means some people just wear 1 or maybe 2, and there's other people wearing 4 or 5 or 6. So
Yeah.
it's like, how can I do a great morning show when I'm writing promos, scheduling the music, and doing engineering and social media on the side?
Yeah. Can I speak about leadership very briefly in relation to the points that Randy and Fred just made, Kevin?
Yes.
What do employees want more than anything else? To feel valued.
Yep.
And to feel safe. In our industry, and I might say that this runs across every job. Every person wants to feel seen, wants to feel valued and safe. What I would say to our managers, of which to me, everyone is charged with leadership. When I work with a show, I say, you're all leaders to me. If you're a market manager, if you're a brand manager, if you're a music director, for the 8 that music directors still exist in the industry, if you're the anchor of the show, if you're the co-host of the show, if you're the producer of the show, if you're lucky enough to have 1 or multiple people in leadership, if you're not getting it, if you make everyone around you in your circle feel valued, and if you create safety for them, they can perform. They can be creative. They can be imaginative. They can brainstorm. They can come up with ideas around the right topics. And if you marry all of that to the content strategy of the show, it's unbeatable.
Agreed.
I think that's a great way to wrap that portion there. We're rolling into Q4, and so there's probably going to be some people looking for ideas. Certainly going to be a lot of charity events, and so I call this part "Tis the Season." Any advice that we can give to air talent on how to maximize those things that'll be flying at them fast and furious?
So I think people want to be around brands that do good.
Mhm.
If you look on paper, Oprah Winfrey should have never been a success. She has nothing in common with the audience, but her brand were her values as a human being, and it's time. We need to always be showing our values as a brand. So it's appropriate now. It's always appropriate. So I have a few guidelines. I would love to get everyone's opinion on it, because I am engaging all the shows now about what cause-oriented work are we doing in the 4th quarter to prove our heart. Fred and I have a shared history with the Children's Miracle Network. Randy, I'm not sure if you've ever done work with them. I started with Bob Lynn, the Radiothon program back in the day. And Fred, I know you're very connected to that organization. I would say all of your community service work needs to be about a cause and not a charity. CMN wants it to be about the hospital, only do for the hospital. But if you do for the hospital, good for you. Your cause is kids. Don't ignore other things that benefit kids. Know what your cause is. And that's different from a charity. It's not about the charity. It's about fueling the cause. The second thing, guideline that I like to touch on is when you're doing this work, there are 2 groups of people listening to you. Those who are inclined or can give, because you told a great story, if I might go backwards, and move them, if I might go backwards. Those who are inclined or can give, and the much larger group of people who won't or can't. That's in the 90 percentile. Yeah, you got to move the people to help you reach the goal. But remember, the reason you do cause-oriented work is to elevate the images of the show with the larger group of people who can't or won't give. You want them thinking, God, those are good people. That's why I turn them on. The last thing that I'll just suggest is that if you cannot make this about money, and especially at a time when people are stretched for money, in Fort Myers, Florida, our cause is pets. We do pet projects, one a quarter. The one coming up is Santa Paws. Many of these I'm sure you guys have heard or done. We're raising toys that we're then giving to all of the animals in the animal shelter, because nowhere did I learn that Santa's going down a chimney at an animal shelter. Let's give them some toys. At Indy 88 in Toronto, I said, "What's your cause?" many years ago, and the show said our cause is homelessness. So the average show will say, let's do a fundraiser. Let's raise money. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that, but I'd rather not. What do homeless people need more than any other? How many homeless people are on the streets of Toronto in the depths of winter? 5,000. What do they need more of than anything else? Socks. So every year they do a sock drive. They call it Socks for the Souls. SOLES, SOULS. This I think will be the 8th year. They've raised in excess of 1 million pairs of socks. Who can't send them 6 pair of socks from Amazon for $5? So be different if you can so that it stands out. And just remember, this is not a fundraising event. This is a storytelling event. You have to be telling stories so it's not a pitch. These are some of the guidelines that I would give my shows as I'm working with them. Especially this time of year where it's really appropriate to put that value that you have as a person and as a talent on full display.
Steve, you make a really good point about storytelling. I've done a lot of work with Caleb and Air One with EMF, and they do these fundraising drives and everything, pledge drives they call them, 2 or 3 times a year. When they get on and like give information, talk about what the goals are, crickets. When someone comes on and tells a story about how listening to Caleb changed their life from being an alcoholic to being a productive human being, boom, 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 the money comes and it rings the bell. Storytelling is definitely at the core of that for sure. One of the points that I would add to causes is that if you pick one cause that you become known for, and you can do more than just at the end of the year, but if there are activities that you can do periodically throughout the year, that is a great advantage for a show, that you become known for that, and that really does give you heart. Now, you can also do a few other things and be involved with some other things throughout the year, but having one main thing, I think, really stands out and helps define your brand.
Yeah, that I think is a really key point, Randy. You see all the time, and this goes back to the Children's Miracle Network. Thank you for bringing that up, Steve. But I think Mix in Baltimore was maybe one of the stations that famously reached the conclusion they were doing all of these charitable events and getting credit for none of them. They would actually go and do the research,
right,
which station supports the local community, and they were, number 10. And they didn't understand it because they were doing everything. And sometimes when you do everything, you get credit for nothing. So attaching yourself to a great cause, or in the case of Indy 88, creating the cause or creating the need or creating the event, I think becomes even more powerful, and also helps to get the rest of the station on the page as well. I think that is such a critical part of, especially with people working remotely now, the whole inside radio vibe isn't what it used to be. So these charitable events in fourth quarter can really represent an opportunity. The last thing I'll add to that, just thinking this year, boy, food banks, right? I mean, I think I think if you're looking for a cause or something to support, I think there's a pretty good chance that a local food bank in your community that is doing a lot of the right things and is supportive of you. I mean, it's great to find a partner who will work with you and not just take the money. You need that staff, you need the participation of their organization in order to really pull off a great event.
Excellent. We had that meeting today in our innovation meeting and talked a little bit about food banks and food closets being exhausted and that kind of thing, and it's perfect timing for that. Just as we wrap up here, I'm going to ask each panelist. We'll start with Randy. 2 takeaways that people can start doing today to to amp up and show their superpowers.
One would be to master the art of storytelling. And the other one would be to not just be a radio personality, but be a multi-platform media personality across video, social media, blogging, all of the above.
Great. Fred?
I have to start with empathy. And again, that's something that we talked about under the emotional intelligence banner. But I think it's never been more important than it is now. I did a lot of work with Greg Salk years ago, and his advice to his air staff, whether they were big personality shows or the midday person, was put yourself in the shoes of the listener. Think about what the listener is going through, not just in terms of the day part and what they are likely to be doing, but how they are likely to be feeling. And again, those needs, I think, become so important. So really understanding what the emotional needs of the audience are at any given point in time. And the other thing that I would mention, and we didn't talk about this, but the idea of being a filter. You know, there's just so much news and information and gossip and trending and everything else, and being able to filter that for your show and not just throw everything against the wall, but learn how to talk about the things that are going to move your audience, I think really becomes important. And then finally, treatment. I know you asked for 2, but I'm giving you 3. That treatment piece, and I think we did a great job between the 4 of us talking about, what it means to come up with the unique bit of treatment for a bit or a segment. I think that becomes something that you can work on tomorrow as well. Steve?
Radio does not have a listening problem, in my opinion. Radio has a top of mind awareness problem. I've said it a million times. We just don't do things that put us top of mind. And in the face of all of the choice that people have for connection and entertainment, why would they choose us if we don't stand out? We have to work on that. And I know that there are some people now that are hearing, oh my God, we need better prizes. Let's get bigger and better prizes. It ain't about prizes. It's about the content and how you do the content. We have to do stuff that makes people talk about us. If we're top of mind, they'll come to us more often. I am the benefactor of seeing many Fred Jacobs presentations. I've even seen the ones that don't have graphs in them and charts. I prefer the ones that don't have charts and graphs because I see them and sometimes I get depressed, right? And I saw a presentation that Fred did once. It's my favorite presentation. I've never told this to Fred, but Fred hypothesized in the presentation that had he decided to get into radio programming, Donald Trump would have been the best program director ever in radio because he has this unique ability to always be wherever we are. He's top of mind. And good or bad, won't share mine, we have to do more stuff that rockets us to the front of their cerebral cortex so that when they get in the car, they immediately think of us and not the podcast or the music streaming service. The other takeaway is I don't think we do a great job in radio of feeding the habit loop. We don't have enough habits on our shows, habits that would compel another occasion of listening, not necessarily top of mind. This is the value of benchmarks and how we do our content, but I don't think we do enough with our brands that wedge us into the routine of the audience and make us a habit every day or more often through the week to get another occasion.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Steve, I want to let you know that on my screen, somehow you ended up next to RJ. So
Yes.
I will alert the authorities. There will be an arrest in Nashville within the hour.
There's someone knocking at the door right now. Hey guys, I want to thank Kevin. Thank you for doing a great job of leading this discussion. Steve Reynolds, Randy Lane, Fred Jacobs. And I would just want to remind everybody watching this that all of these guys that are participating today publish on the regular. You should read Fred Jacobs' blog every day. You should find Steve Reynolds on Facebook, and you should find Randy's website and read the material that they share on a constant basis, because it's very helpful. A lot of what we've discussed today, you'll see there, and it's a great read. It's part of my morning routine. Thank you, guys. All of them have been kind enough to share their contact information. So if you have a question for any of our panelists today, here's how you reach everybody. That is their email. And I just want to also remind you, this is how you follow CRS on all of our socials. And thank you all for participating. Thanks everybody for watching today. And have a great holiday if we don't talk before the end of the year.
Thank you.